Hi, I'm Jaclyn.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Welcome back. I know for you guys it's just been 1 week like normal, but Courtney and I have not recorded in 3 weeks, so sorry if we're a little rusty this morning. We already had a few mishaps just getting started because we don't know what to do anymore. I don't know.
No, I'm hoping it's going to be like riding a bike, and I'll just like hop back in and like feel it. But I was sitting there and I was like, be sure and hit record. What's my line? What do I say?
What is our intro? GarageBand crashed on me this morning and then took forever to open, and then my mic wouldn't turn on, and it's just like us and our technology don't know how to record a podcast anymore because it's been so long, which is odd. And also Courtney and I had to talk for 40 minutes before we got started this morning, even though we literally text all day every day, but we haven't FaceTimed in 2 weeks. So
I know, I haven't seen your face, so I had to be like, oh, here's all these like stories that just don't, or things that I'm just going to talk about randomly off the top of my head.
Yes. And also, it is pouring down rain here, so if you hear a little background noise, I apologize.
It's just a little ASMR for you, just a little,
Yes.
calm, relaxing. If you're going to sleep, we can just talk real quietly and real softly with the rain. And then we're going to talk about probably murder, so...
Exactly, and I'm going to let Courtney talk softly with the rain because I don't know if I know how to talk softly. I don't think I've ever done that in my life, so...
Oh.
My bad.
I always thought I was loud until we started recording the podcast, and then I was like, why do I have to keep turning myself up?
Yep, I never really, I didn't think you were loud, but I never thought of you as, particularly quiet, but...
Yeah, I thought I was just, middle, but now I'm like, am I quiet? Can people hear me? Hello? Anyone?
Like we said, a little rusty this morning, guys. We'll get there.
Yeah. This is what you signed up for, guys. When you hit subscribe, This is what you get.
Exactly. And I feel like the rain today is very fitting because we're doing haunted houses again. So it's very, there's a word in there that I don't know. Aesthetic? I don't think that's right. Anyway, so.
I guess it's aesthetic would make sense, but
it doesn't quite, you get what I'm saying, but it's not the right word.
But I can't think of the word either.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
boy.
don't know. Anyway.
I don't think I have anything else, so I can go ahead and get started. So, the first one I'm doing is the Ramsay House in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is where I live.
Oh.
So I got my information from ramseyhouse.org, a WATE6 news clip, and a Memphis Daily News article. The Ramsay House was built in 1797 by Knoxville's first builder, Thomas Hope, for Francis Alexander Ramsay. And so the home is constructed of Tennessee pink marble and blue limestone, and it was known at the time as the finest home in all of Tennessee.
Wow.
So, pretty cool. So, Francis Alexander Ramsay, who is he? I'll tell you. So, he was born in Pennsylvania in May 1764. I read somewhere in an article that said he fought in the Revolutionary War, but he would have been 10. So, I don't know how valid.
I mean, I feel like that's possible.
See it. He probably did help. They probably were all hands on deck. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I read that somewhere, but who knows if it's true. So then, after that, he decided to move to East Tennessee in late summer of 1783 with his first wife, Peggy. Now, at one point, I'm pretty sure Peggy dies because he gets married again to a woman named Anne.
Okay.
There's not a lot of info, on what really happened. It's just kind of Peggy and then Anne. I'm not sure. But
are we sure she didn't change her name? I'm
assuming they're two separate people, but who knows? Back then, people got a cold and died, so who knows?
Yes, we're just throwing all the possibilities out there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So when he came to the area, there were less than 400 settlers here. So there was, nobody.
Wow.
And they were one of the first families to settle in Knoxville, and Knoxville was founded in 1791. So he probably had a hand in that. And he...
sorry if you are going to get to this in a minute, but where in Knoxville is this house? What area?
Kind of east, kind of near John Sevier Highway, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. I was just curious, just because I don't know this one. Okay.
Yeah, I've never been there, but it looks nice. They do tours and stuff like that. But the Ramsay family did play very vital roles in developing civic, educational, and cultural institutions in the area. And he also, like malaria and other diseases were really bad during this time. So in all of the lakes, he had the beaver dams removed, and so the water would drain to try and reduce, the mosquitoes and the malaria, just really trying to help the area thrive and not everyone who comes here get malaria.
That's usually a good thing.
Yes. And he was one of the founding trustees of Blount College, which is more commonly known today as, can you guess?
Should I know?
I don't know. I didn't know.
I don't know.
Kevin didn't know either. University of Tennessee.
Oh.
So,
good to know.
Used to be called Blount College, apparently. So many of his children died before adulthood, like happened back then. Mm-hmm. But all of those who did live were all college educated, including his daughter, Eliza Jane, which I thought was super cool, because that's pretty progressive in
awesome.
The 1700s.
Mm-hmm.
So he did have one son, William, or Billy, he went by both, who did die at the age of 8. He'll come up again. And apparently this was common back then, that whenever you had a child die, you just name your next child after them in honor. So I know Hamilton did this. Like I read that his son Philip died, and then they named another kid Philip, which I find very weird, but who am I to judge? There's only so many names. So,
and I mean, you had so many kids then too that eventually you're gonna run out of names. So like, well, we liked this kids. One, we'll just use it again. It's fine.
It's in honor. It's So that son that did end up living to adulthood was William Bain Alexander Ramsey, and he did become the first elected mayor of Knoxville and served as Secretary of State for Tennessee.
Wow.
And so poor Francis Ramsey, even though he tried all he could to reduce malaria, he did die from malaria in 1820.
That's ironic.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. They were like, he tried so hard to help, and then yeah. It happens, I guess. So the home had remained in the Ramsey family for 80 years, but a grandson of Francis Ramsey sold it in 1866. And then it was sold in 1952 for purposes of preservation. Prior to that, it said it was a rental property. So I don't know if what exactly that means. I don't know what they were doing with this property, but they did use historical documents, and they were able to restore the house to how it looked when Francis Ramsey lived there. And there are a few pieces in the house that did belong to the Ramseys, including chairs that were a wedding present from the parents of Francis's first wife, and also a cross-stitch sampler made by his daughter, Eliza. So the home is now owned by the Association for the Preservation of Tennessee Antiques, but it's run independently by a board of directors. So let's get into the ghosts, because that's what y'all are here for, not for this history. So,
I mean, I find the history fascinating, but
I mean, same. I agree. This is not Forget True Crime. We're just going to tell the history of houses now on.
Yep, we're just changing the whole podcast. All right, we got to come up with a new name now.
Caffeinated Houses. All right, here we go. So the Ramsay House, it's old, and all old houses just have to have some ghost activity.
Yep.
And so apparently people hear footsteps, or they kind of feel a presence, or they see shadows. So Kelly Witherly Sinclair is the executive director of the Ramsay House, and she says they believe they've identified the spirits as Billy, who was the 8-year-old son, Anne, who was his second wife, Seth, and Reynolds. So they think Seth and Reynolds, one is a grandfather and one is an enslaved person who was on the property. I couldn't find for sure them saying which one, Seth and Reynolds, which one was the grandfather and which was the enslaved person. Mm-hmm. But I have a feeling that Seth might have been the enslaved person due to this next story. So Sue Jones is the museum assistant, and she was telling a story about a paranormal investigator who was in the home. And she said that he was in the room, and he was like, oh my goodness, someone just swore at me. And she went, don't worry, that's just Seth. She's like, don't worry about it. It's just Seth. So the guy's like, okay, Seth, what do you want? And he said stairs. So There's a set of stairs that leads to a dormitory that no one goes to anymore, and another article did say that the enslaved persons on the property did live in an upstairs loft, so I'm wondering if this is kind of the connection. And all I'm saying is, I was Seth, I'd be angry too. I'd be haunting that place.
For sure.
So, yeah, they say, like, it'll, like, the door to those stairs will slam or it'll open, like, activity there. Just a lot of activity in that stairwell. So Billy, who died at 8, his spirit can be felt around the house too. And Sue says, like, she knows when he's in the room with her because he'll just tap on her arm as, like, he's walking by.
He's like, hey, have a nice day.
So it was really funny because this was in the news clip, and, like, the woman was like, does this not creep you out? And she was like, no, he's 8. It's like, why would I be scared? And, like, in the news clip, the reporter was like, she said all this, like, so nonchalantly that, like, it makes me believe her more than someone being like, this big thing happened, but she's just like, oh, that's Seth. He's 8. Like, it's fine.
No big deal. That's true.
So, and there is one window in the house that repeatedly, even to this day, just constantly, they get calls about because after the Ramsay House will close, people will see a woman in the window, and they'll call and be like, hey, someone's in your house, like, someone broke in, you need to call the security company. But the security company's like, nobody's in this house, like, I'm looking at the cameras, there's no one here. And then they started to figure out, like, everyone was giving the same description, and it's a tall, thin woman with her hair up in a bun, and they believe that this is Anne, who was Ramsay's second wife. And this still happens frequently, and they just have to send security people out there. But, I mean, they just get calls all the time about seeing this woman in the window. So the house today is preserved and restored to the period. You can visit it. You can tour it. It's really beautiful. It was one of the finest houses at the time. There was, like, a documentary made about this house, but I couldn't find it anywhere, and I even emailed the Ramsey House, and they never emailed me back. So, thanks, guys. But, yeah, so that's the Ramsey House and the ghosts that haunt it.
That's very interesting. I like hearing the local ones that, you know, like, you've seen or heard of, even though I haven't seen or heard of this one that I know of. I mean, maybe I've seen it and, like, didn't realize that I have. But anyway, I always just think it's really interesting to hear the local ones, like, where you grew up and everything. So that's fun.
Yeah, and it's fun to hear, like, the history of Knoxville too, and, like,
this
guy who came and helped, and, like, he had a lot to do with, like, I think his name was, like, James Sevier, James Blunt, like, all the people who got the county names from around here.
Yeah, so that is super interesting. All right, so my first house is the oldest continuously operating hotel in the United States, which is in Boston, and it's called the Omni Parker House. So, do you remember if we saw this when we were in Boston? I don't remember specifically, but...
It kind of sounds familiar, actually.
I thought it did, but I couldn't,
Isn't there a Ruth Chris in it?
I don't know, my research didn't tell me that.
I don't know, I feel like I remember... Like, because it was a really old hotel, and we were like, yeah, and this Ruth Chris here was totally here when it was built, but I'm not sure.
Hold that thought. It looks like there's one near it, but I don't think it's in it.
In it? So, like, next to it, or just, like, across the street, or?
It says up the street. Okay, like, it's on the same street. So, I don't know. But, anywho. So, this hotel was built in 1855 and founded by Harvey D. Parker. So Parker came to Boston from Maine in 1825 when he was 20 years old, and he worked as a coachman. So he would drive wealthy women around Boston in a horse-drawn carriage. And he would often go to the same cafe for lunch every day, and then ended up buying that cafe in 1832 for $432. So I'm like, he must have made some good money driving around wealthy women in a horse-drawn carriage to be like, well, I'm just going to buy this place that I go to have lunch at every day.
So was it only driving them around, or was there something a little hanky-hanky?
You know, it would make sense. You know, you got these lonely wives, and their husbands are probably working all day, and they just want to go around town and shop and get lunch and maybe have some relations with the coachman. I don't know. But he did buy the cafe, and he renamed it Parker's Restaurant. And so he eventually got together with a business partner, and they bought what was the old Mico Mansion, and they tore it down and built a hotel on it. And this plot of land was also used to house the Boston Latin School. So when the hotel opened on October 8th, 1855, it adopted the, quote, European plan, which meant that guests would pay for rooms and meals separately. And apparently previous to this in the United States, the cost of your hotel room would include a meal, but then the Omni Parker House started doing it separately, and I guess that kind of led the way for more hotels to do that as well. So if you wanted to purchase a meal, you could, but it wasn't automatically included. So food was really important to him, and Parker really wanted to have excellent food at his hotel. So he hired a French chef named Sanzian, and at this time, a typical chef's salary was $418 a year. And he paid him $5,000 a year to be the chef at this hotel.
And the normal was $800, and he paid
$400.
$400.
Yeah.
He paid this guy $5,000. Holy moly!
Yes. And
hope you make good food.
Oh, he did, Courtney, because fun fact, he invented the Boston cream pie.
Wow.
Isn't that so cool?
That's super cool. Now I want a donut.
I got so hungry researching this house because they talked about some of the food and they mentioned that, and I was like, wow, like that is so cool.
That is really
I also
cool.
forgot to mention my sources. All of this came from historyofmassachusetts.org. So Parker slowly bought more of the surrounding plots of land and just kept building onto the hotel. So Mary Todd Lincoln stayed at this hotel in 1862 when she was visiting her son, who was a student. And John Wilkes Booth stayed in this hotel 10 days before he assassinated Lincoln.
Oh my goodness.
I'm telling you, this hotel is fascinating.
Also, when Mary Lincoln visited, was Abraham Lincoln still alive at that point, or had he already been assassinated? I can't remember what year he was assassinated.
I'm pretty sure it was... Hold on.
Sorry.
It was before. It was 3 years before Lincoln was assassinated.
Okay. Because I was going to say, it was going to be real eerie. If
Yeah, no, but it is still eerie that they both stayed there.
That they both stayed there, yeah.
And that he stayed there 10 days before. And he supposedly plotted his assassination while there, but there's not a whole lot to confirm that. So, I mean, it could just be people amping up the hotel. But,
yeah.
The hotel was rebuilt in 1927, but they left the 10th-story annex open to guests during that time, which makes it the longest continuously operating hotel in the United States because they did remain open. Basically, they've remained open since they opened in 1855. So Parker passed away in May of 1884. So the hotel was still operated by his original business partner for a while, but it has been sold and expanded multiple times since then. So now we'll get into the ghosts. So on the 10th floor annex, Harvey Parker himself is said to reside there. So an employee of the hotel described first hearing about it when he started working there in 1941. So they've been seeing this man for quite a while. So this employee told the Boston Globe that there are many stories of a man who resembled Parker roaming the halls and then suddenly fading away. And a man with a beard wearing colonial clothing has also been reported on the 9th and 10th floors and even appeared at the foot of a guest's bed one time, which I would not enjoy. So, no.
That would be so creepy to just like wake up and you're just like, hello?
Hi, sir. Can I help you?
Hi,
Please
can
don't.
I help you?
The 3rd floor of the main building is also said to be haunted. One of the elevators is reported to repeatedly stop on the 3rd floor and open the doors even though no one is ever there and there's no evidence of anyone having pushed the button. And this has been reported hundreds of times. And it's believed to be the ghost of actress Charlotte Cushman. Charlotte died in her room on the 3rd floor of the hotel in 1876 from pneumonia after a long battle with breast cancer. And it's said that the elevator started stopping on the 3rd floor after her death. In room 303 is the hotel's most famous ghost. In 1949, a liquor salesman killed himself with a combination of whiskey and barbiturates. So after that, guests that started staying in the room reported the smell of whiskey and sounds of like really loud, like haunting laughter. And after so many complaints, they turned the room into a storage closet because people just didn't want to stay there.
Just didn't want to stay there, yeah.
But I'm also wondering, because this happened in 1949, so it would have been in the few years following that. So, like, I wonder now if they would have a similar situation, because I feel like now people, like, intentionally seek out staying in haunted rooms. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like people would be, like, oh, this room's haunted, I want to stay here.
Yeah,
like me.
Yeah, I'm like, most of the time, places that have haunted rooms, like, they're booked up way in advance, like, if you want that specific room. So I just thought that was interesting that at that time they're like, nah, you take this room, we don't want it. So Charles Dickens also stayed at this hotel a lot during his American tour. So a mirror that was in his room that he supposedly practiced reading A Christmas Carol into for the tour is now located in a hallway of the hotel. And a staff member reported cleaning it, and it would, like, fog up like someone was breathing on the other side of it. And he's like, I'm not going to clean this mirror anymore. I'm done. So
he's like, okay.
Yep.
Goodbye.
Nope, not anymore. Other mysterious occurrences have been reported there over the years, from doors opening to whispering sounds outside doors, to one story of a man saying that a former employee was yelling at him from the ballroom, but that employee had just died. So he was like, I'm pretty sure it's not him.
Yeah.
And there have also been multiple complaints of noise from room 1040, and then security arrives and the room is completely empty. So that's the history and various hauntings of the Omni Parker House.
Nice. So you telling that story just made me remember another, like, ghost experience I had. So when I went to UT, I did not live in the dorms. I lived at home. Mm-hmm. But my friends did, so I just hung out there all the time. So in the dorm they were in, it was said to be haunted. Like, even, like, the people who would, like, watch the elevators would, like, see a man, like, walking in and out that wasn't there. Mm-hmm. So one time it was me and my friend, and we were on the elevator, and the elevator just suddenly stopped on this floor. And it opened, and nobody was there, and we were like, what? And we just felt this, like thing coming at us. And we both just, like, looked at each other, and we're like, what the heck? And then we, like, felt it, like, walk out, and then the doors closed, and we were like, get us off this elevator.
You're like, nope, going in the stairs from now on.
It was just, like, the weirdest, like, because no one was there, but then it just, this, like, feeling, and it was like, what is happening? Who's here?
Super creepy. Ugh.
Yeah. It made me think of that when you said, like, the elevator would stop. But, yeah, that was super interesting. I kind of want to go stay there now, or see it at least, because we probably saw it, but I don't remember it.
Because, I mean, it's, like, huge, so I feel like we would have, and it sounded familiar, but then, like, I couldn't, like, exactly
just,
place
like, the Omni part, like, something about that word.
Yeah,
it feels like I've seen it,
Same.
But I don't know if I have.
We'll go back through all of our pictures and be like, is it in the background?
Is it in the background? Can we take a picture? So, I decided to take a page out of Jaclyn's book. And so, for this one, I was like, I've only ever lived in Knoxville, so where's my fiance from? Where does his family live? They live in Baltimore. So, I decided to do a Baltimore place. It is the Admiral Fell Inn. And my sources were the admiralfell.com, onlyinyourstate.com, travelchannel.com, a Baltimore Sun article, a Fright Find article, and another Baltimore Sun article. So, the Fell family were Quakers from Lancaster, England. So they came over to the great America to start a new life, and they founded Fells Point in 1730. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to Baltimore, but there's a big harbor there. And so they developed it into, like, a major shipbuilding center, as well as a busy deep water seaport for importing and exporting. So through the 18th and 19th centuries, Fells Point was very busy and exported a lot of Maryland's tobacco and grain, and they also accepted a very large number of imports from Europe and West Indies. So, towards the 1900s, Fells Point, they had a lot of sailors, and they had a lot of saloons, and they had a lot of brothels.
What more could you need?
What more do you need when you're just coming off the ship? You just need a saloon and a brothel, and you're good. But a lot say that it was a really rough area, like it started to get really bad, and they even said there was some, like, mob activity here. They really viewed it as, like, an unholy place. They called it shady. They called it rough. I mean, it's a seaport where sailors will just, like, stay for a day or two and then be on to their next ship. I think we can think of, like, movies and TV shows that, like, depict this. Like, I don't know. I thought of Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, you know, when they get off the ship and it's just, like, all this, like, weird shit's happening and there's just, like, women with their boobs out. Like, that's just what I
They're just
pictured.
like, oh, okay, this is fun.
And so the Christian Port Mission decided to build a Christian boarding house and recreation center called Anchorage for the sailors and the dock workers. And this is one of the 7 buildings that's now the Admiral Fell Inn. It's like the center one. Mm-hmm. So this basically just gave a place for the sailors to enjoy like a safe night's sleep, especially because there was just a lot of stuff happening. There was like the mob activity, you know, people are drinking, not probably a lot of safe places to sleep. And so this gave them a good place they could just stay. And it was very, very popular, and they even expanded it to some of the buildings next to it as well. So in 1920, the YMCA bought the Anchorage and expanded it to a 105-room Seamen's YMCA. But they said the rooms were incredibly small, and they referred to it as the doghouse. Oh. They were so small. Well. So I'm assuming it was like, I just picture like a closet. Like you open the door, you take a step in, close it, and you lay on the bed. And there's nothing else.
That's all there is.
But this YMCA did provide rooms for 50,000 sailors a year and operated until 1955. And they decided to close because they wanted to, quote, focus their energies elsewhere. But basically at this point, more men were just sleeping on the ships. They weren't really like coming off of there. And they said that this was really viewed, like the YMCA closing was really viewed as like the end of an era for Fells Point. Like it was just kind of like dying off a bit. I'm sure there was like other means of exporting and importing, all that. After this, the building itself changed a few times. The last known was it was a Vinegar Works bottling company, but it closed in 1970. So in 1985, they decided to buy it and remodel it into the Admiral Fell Inn, which was a 38-room bed and breakfast. So then in 1966, they made some upgrades and they expanded it to an 80-room hotel with a rooftop space. Ooh. And they decided to furnish it to reflect the 18th century era in which it started. It's still a hotel today. You can stay there for like $140 a night, which isn't bad.
It's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I kind of want to go just to like stay there.
Yeah.
And like Fells Point in general is not like it used to be. It is beautiful. There's bars, there's restaurants, there's shops. It's just a really nice area.
Remember bars and restaurants and shops?
I know, right? I miss them.
Same.
So let's get down to the spooky. So again, long history. A lot of people stayed here. In 2011, TripAdvisor named it one of the top 10 haunted hotels in America. Ooh. And they also offer ghost tours as well. So they're just kind of like buying into it. And a lot of people think like the ghost could be the victims of like the mob activity. It's also said people just died in this area due to like heavy drinking, other explained causes, you know. And if sailors died and their families couldn't be contacted, they would just be buried in a nearby plot, just like in like an unmarked grave. And they even told a story of a German sailor who shot himself in one of the rooms because he was scared he was going to go blind by a disease he contacted in North Africa.
Oh, so, goodness.
Yeah. I know, I read that and was like, oh, okay. So, in 2017, the hotel's general manager, Mario Corrado Jr., gave an interview and said that while the hotel is haunted, they're not mean spirits. He was like, he wanted to make sure people knew they weren't like the Stanley Hotel, which is the hotel The Shining's based on, which I was thinking we should do like just a whole episode on that, because I'm sure there's plenty of information on that.
Yes.
And that, if you guys want that, let us know, because I'd be happy to do it. So... And he just, like, was saying, like, people don't, like, run out of the hotel terrified, you know. They're not mean ghosts, they're just here. And he said frequently guests will call the front desk to say there are people having a party in the room next to them and there's a lot of noise, but the front desk finds nobody is in those rooms. Those rooms are empty, no one's in them. And as soon as the front desk goes to check out the noise, it'll just stop. So, and another common story similar to this was in 2003 when Hurricane Isabel was coming. A bunch of workers stayed back to board up the windows and just make sure it'll be okay. The manager sat down to take a break and he felt the floor beneath him like vibrating. And then he heard loud music on the second floor, footsteps, like bouncing and moving and dancing. He heard laughing, he heard singing, and he's like, what's happening? Like, there's no one here. And then when another worker came in, he said he also heard it as well, and that the noises stopped just as soon as they started, like just suddenly out of nowhere stopped. So they just want to have a little party in the afterlife.
I know. That's the second story we've talked about with partying ghosts that are just having a good time and then go back to whatever they're doing when people notice.
A lot of stories from this, sounded like the Omni Parker Hotel as well. Because another ghost did say,
What did the ghost say, Courtney?
Another guest told the story. Hold on.
I did that earlier too, where I said guest when I meant ghost. Because they look, like when you're like skimming, like the words look so similar, and you're like, oh, nope, wrong one. It gets confusing with these haunted hotels. Do I want a ghost? Do I want a guest? Are they both? I don't know.
Okay, so another guest told the story of waking up in his hotel room to the sound of footsteps. So when he woke up, he saw a woman in old-fashioned clothing walking through a wall.
Oh.
And so, of course, he's, like, getting up because he's like, who is this woman coming out of the wall? And she urged him to just lie back down before she moved on to check on, like, the next person, and she just disappeared. So that's creepy. I don't want to be experiencing that. So, room 413 is said to have the most activity. So, if you're wanting a little haunting experience, request that room. There will be sudden cold spots and shadows that kind of dart around the room. People say they wake up and there's a ghost at the end of their bed. And it's said that a guest had checked into this room and never reappeared, and he was found dead like several days later, like in the past. And they think maybe this is why it has more activity. And some say it was like natural causes, he just died. And other people say he was a victim of like the mob activity. But housekeepers and maintenance workers report feeling really uncomfortable in this room, and some even refuse to go in there. They're like, if there's something wrong, I'm not going. And some housekeepers have reported feeling someone touch them or place hands on their shoulders and like feel like people are walking past them. Oh. Just like real creepy. But yeah, most ghosts here have been friendly, and there's no like particularly gruesome stories that can be confirmed. However, there is one story of foul play. About a decade ago, the Baltimore Sun's Peter Herman reported on the murder of a conventioner who was beaten to death at the inn. So a hotel manager found the New Jersey man's body in his room, but there was no signs of a forced entry. And police later arrested a Baltimore man who admitted to attacking and killing the guest because he thought gay men were evil.
Wow.
So there's that.
Wow.
But overall, the Admiral Fell Inn seems to host mostly friendly ghosts. No one's really running out and screaming. So if you're in Baltimore, go look at it. If you want to stay, request room 413. But that is the story of the Admiral Fell Inn.
Wow, that was a super interesting one. And I'm with you. I definitely want to go there, especially whenever regular life resumes and you guys go to visit Kevin's family. Since I'm now only like 2 hours away from them, I should meet you there. And
yeah.
We should spend a night
Have you
there.
ever been to Baltimore? Have you ever been like around the city?
No, I had to think about it for a minute because
it's
Andrew
really
and I,
nice.
we were going to go to the Bengals-Ravens game in October after we moved here, but the Bengals did very poorly during all of last season, so by the time it was like, okay, do we really want to spend a whole day and money to go watch them lose? And nah, I'm good. So
yeah.
I couldn't remember. I was like, did we? Because we planned on it, but no, we never actually did.
Yeah, it's a beautiful city, and there's a lot. And there's one place I have been called the Horse You Came In On Saloon, which is like the last place Edgar Allan Poe was before he died. Like,
wow.
It's even rumored to say he died like in there. I almost did that one, but I didn't. But just a lot of history there too, because it's like older and it's super cool.
That definitely sounds fun. We'll add that to our list of things we want to do after quarantine. Because there's quite a few page
list.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of trips and places that I like to go, I wanted to do one that was local to Portland because Andrew and I love Portland a lot. We actually named our dog Rosie after Portland, which is the city of roses. Also, hi to my friend Mariah, who lives near Portland, who is listening. Yeah, anyway, so I got my information.
Shout out to Portland!
Yes. I got this information from an Oregon Live article and a POMC article. So the Roseland Theater is an iconic music venue in Portland, Oregon that has hosted artists such as Ray Charles, Bob Dylan, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Miles Davis, the Misfits, Snoop Dogg, and Prince. This one's more about the crime versus the hauntings, but it was just super interesting, so I had to do it.
Yeah.
So this building was originally a church built by the Apostolic Faith Church in 1922. It was converted to a music venue called Starry Night in 1982 by a man named Larry Hurwitz. Hurwitz came to Oregon from New York to live in a commune, which is a very Oregon thing to do.
Yeah.
After the commune collapsed, he opened a natural food store and would later open a local restaurant and a nightclub called Day for Night before buying the old church and converting it to the Starry Night music venue. Hurwitz was one of the most prominent figures in the rock music scene in Portland in the 1980s. To make extra money, Hurwitz started selling counterfeit tickets to shows booked by other promoters at his club Day for Night. So this resulted in overcrowding during these shows because they sold way more tickets than they had space available. Music promoters Chris Monlux and Mike Quinn with Monquee Presents had booked a show at Starry Night for John Lee Hooker on January 23, 1990. The event was sold out, but a few days before the show, Monlux and Quinn heard on the radio that tickets were still available at Day for Night. So they knew the club wasn't authorized to sell tickets and that Starry Night must be running some kind of scam. So Monlux and Quinn arrived the night of the John Lee Hooker show and said that they would take the tickets at the door themselves. So after many patrons coming in with counterfeit tickets, they notified Hurwitz, who blamed his 21-year-old publicity agent, Tim Moreau. Tim Moreau was from New Orleans. He played the violin as a child. He loved the Mardi Gras parades. He was really involved with the Boy Scouts for most of his childhood, eventually becoming an Eagle Scout as a teenager. He moved to Portland to attend Reed College and was majoring in philosophy when he decided to take a leave of absence to get experience working in the music scene. So that's when he started working for Larry Hurwitz at Starry Night. So it was unlikely that Moreau was the mastermind behind this counterfeit ticket scheme. One, because he's like a college student who just started working in the music industry, but also because employees at Day for Night would have notified their boss and the owner, Larry Hurwitz, if someone else had asked them to sell counterfeit tickets. So they're like, okay, like we really don't think it was this 21-year-old kid. It was probably the owner of both clubs. Yeah. Kind of obviously. So Hurwitz requested that Moreau meet him at his office a few days later, and Tim Moreau has never been seen again. So his car was found at the Portland International Airport, but there was no record of him being on a flight. And when police searched his apartment, they also found his checkbooks, credit cards, and cash left behind, including $230 in his checking account. When police questioned Larry Hurwitz, he said that Tim Moreau was involved in illegal drugs and must have ran away after he confronted him about the illegal ticket scam. But of course they're suspicious because they're like, he left all of his money and credit cards and everything behind, and also abandoned his car, so none of this adds up. So then 6 months later, on June 20th, 1990, reporter Jim Redden published a piece called Missing and Presumed Dead, revealing that multiple sources from the music scene believed that Hurwitz was the mastermind behind the counterfeit ticket scams and that he was the primary suspect in Moreau's disappearance and likely murder. So Hurwitz then sued Redden for $5 million for libel. So during the deposition for this lawsuit, Hurwitz admitted to intentionally overcrowding Starry Night, as well as other crimes, including not filing taxes for 4 years, as well as the kidnapping of a former employee's parents. And I couldn't find any more information about that, and I was very disappointed. Like, it was just casually thrown in there, like, among other crimes, he kidnapped an employee's parents. What?
Yeah, because that's the thing, you're like, okay, he didn't file taxes, okay, like, kidnapping, that's a big charge.
Right? But obviously, since he was suing for libel about the ticket scams, but then during the deposition he admits to the ticket scams, the judge threw the case out. So Hurwitz then tried to file taxes for the previous years, claiming that the club only made $4,000 a year. So Redden published additional stories about Hurwitz's tax evasion. So this increased negative publicity caused Hurwitz to sell Starry Night in February of 1991. And Hurwitz was quoted as saying that he, quote, lost the support of the music industry, end quote, which is why he decided to sell the club. So Double T Promotions bought the venue and spent millions renovating it and renamed it the Roseland Theater. And it continues to host a variety of music shows today. So then, in 1996, Portland police raided a pawn shop believed to be buying and selling stolen property. So the owner of the pawn shop took a plea deal and provided police the information that Larry Hurwitz had bought more than $10,000 in silver during the years his taxes showed that his business only made $4,000. So in 1997, the IRS indicted Hurwitz for not paying taxes on more than $420,000. So this gave the police more ammunition to continue investigating Hurwitz for Morrow's murder. So one of Hurwitz's Starry Night employees, George Castagnola, confessed during a taped phone interview with his girlfriend that he had helped Hurwitz murder Tim Moreau and dispose of his body. So Castagnola's detailed confession stated that he and Hurwitz had dug a hole in a rural and forested area on the Washington side of the Columbia River Gorge 2 days prior to Moreau's scheduled meeting with Hurwitz. On the night Moreau disappeared, Castagnola held him down while Hurwitz strangled him with a garrote made of a microphone wire and a piece of broom handle. The garrote broke and Moreau was unconscious, but they weren't sure if he was dead, so they wrapped his face in duct tape to be sure that if he was not actually dead, he soon would be. Which is horrific.
Ugh.
Horrific.
I don't think I've ever heard of anyone doing that, but now I'm like, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Ugh.
And
like, you just like wake up and you're like, ugh.
And the thing is, you're probably thinking also, like, I don't want to die, and then you have to think, like, how am I going to get this duct tape off my face?
Yeah.
Like, if you wake up and you're just like, oh my god. No.
Like, that's, ugh. So then they put him into a garbage bag and drove him to the grave that they had already dug in the trunk of their car and buried him. And they planted his car at the airport to make it look like he had run away. So George Castagnola took a plea deal of 10 years, and Larry Hurwitz pleaded no contest in the year 2000. So they offered a plea deal of 12 years or 10 years if he helped them find the body. So he cooperated, and he gave them the information about where he was buried, but his body still has never been located because it's just such a, like, rural, forested area that it's, like, impossible, even with instructions so many years later to actually find him. Tim Moreau's parents filed a wrongful death suit in 2001, and Hurwitz did admit to the murder and agreed to pay them $3 million. So it's unknown how much he has actually paid towards this, because obviously, like, he skipped out on a bunch of taxes, and I'm sure he owed the IRS money, and he was in, I think, Colombia for a while, and so this guy's just got a lot going on. So they won the lawsuit, but they don't really know if they've actually gotten any money, but Tim's parents are basically like, we just wanted him to admit that he did it because he pleaded no contest. So it's like, he, pleaded guilty, but he didn't really admit, like, yes, I did this, and that's all
He's
they
like,
wanted.
I'm just not gonna fight this. Like,
yeah. So Hurwitz was released from prison in 2008 after serving 8 years of his 10-year sentence.
So is he still just out and about?
Yep. For what was clearly first-degree murder. Like, you lured him to the theater and planned this, murdered him. Like, you dug the grave 2 days before. Like, your accomplice admitted that you dug a grave 2 days before. But because
there are currently people in jail on non-violent drug offenses for life. Just let that sink in.
Yep.
Like, think of Khalif Browder, who spent probably, 3 years in prison for nothing. And this guy's just like, all right, a little bit longer, and I'm out, even though I intentionally murdered someone.
And also at the beginning, when I listed my sources, I said POMC because I couldn't remember what that was. It was the Parents of Missing Children's website, which if you ever want to just like ruin your whole day, just go to that website, because it's literally just like a catalog of parents who post about their missing children. And so like the information I got about Tim as far as like his childhood and who he was as a person was what his parents had published there. So it was just heartbreaking. Like, and he was such a cute, like, this, like, ginger, like, outdoorsy guy, like...
Yeah.
But they say Tim Moreau's ghost haunts the Roseland Theater today, talking and angrily whispering as he walks up and down the aisles. So
I'd haunt it, too.
Yeah. So, again, that one wasn't so much about the haunting, but, like, it is a haunted place, and then I just, like, went down this rabbit hole, and... Because at first I, like... saw that the guy was arrested like 7 years later, and so I'm like, okay, well, how did we get to this point? And then you get into like this journalist that played a huge part in it by like just constantly digging and being like, look, he's doing this now, and look, he's doing this now. And then it eventually gets to, you know, he finally gets somewhat of justice, I guess, for 8 years. Ugh.
Yeah.
And like his poor parents, like,
yeah, it just makes me think of something Billy Jensen says all the time, which is like, the squeaky wheel gets oil. Like, literally just keep making noise. Do not stop talking. Like, that's just what you gotta do. You just have to be like, excuse me, I'm gonna keep calling you, I'm gonna keep calling and calling and calling, and it's exhausting and you shouldn't have to, but someone's just gotta keep going, gotta keep digging, gotta keep, like, pushing for it.
I mean, George Floyd's murderers would not have been arrested if there was not the public outcry. 100% that would not have happened.
Yeah.
Also, PSA, arrest Breonna Taylor's murderers. Anyway.
Yes.
And we also, after our last Haunted Houses episode, received a haunted house tale from our listener, Catherine. So we wanted to read that to you guys today. So, Catherine said, I lived in a house in Lincoln, Massachusetts, not far from Walden Pond. Half of the house was older than the rest, and I got to have the entire upstairs half of that wing to myself because it was the room with built-in bookshelves, and the rest was a guest bedroom, living room, and kitchen. I kept having rattling on my doors and knockings on my walls, and the door handle would twist back and forth. The door would open and then slam shut as soon as I looked towards it.
Creepy.
Yes, super creepy. I did a lot of lucid dreaming in the 2 years my family lived there, but my parents brushed off my feelings that there were sometimes malevolent influences there and the impression of a trickster who just wanted attention at other times. 20 years later, I was telling my sister about a recent apparition I'd seen in Boston, which was a woman in colonial dress walking through a graveyard, and how it reminded me of the house in Lincoln. And she said, did I ever tell you that house was haunted? Catherine says that she reminded her of her experiences. Her sister then said, when we first moved in, she did what I had looked through the storage in the attic. I appropriated a book of piano music that still is with me to this day. She said she found a little girl's diary that had recipes in it, so she decided to take it downstairs to read. And that night she saw a little girl standing in the air outside her second floor window just watching her. And the next night it happened again, so she returned the diary to the attic the next day and never saw the little girl again.
That is so creepy.
So creepy. Oh my goodness. But thank you so much, Catherine, for sending that in to us. If you guys have haunted houses tales, please send them our way. We would love to read them. Also, thanks to Catherine, who sent us a couple of corrections from the Elizabeth Smart episode, so we just wanted to address those as well. I think we used the term elders incorrectly. So Catherine said what we probably meant were like a bishop or a congregation leader or stake president. So when we referred to the elders, I think that's what we meant there. And also, we do apologize for using the term Mormon. So we did not realize that that term was offensive coming from people who are outside of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So we apologize for that, and going forward, we will make sure and always use a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So thank you, Catherine. We always appreciate constructive feedback or just knowledge that we're not aware of. Mm-hmm. So please send anything our way. You guys know how to find us.
Yeah, we would never do anything intentionally offensive, so if we do, please correct us and we'll address it, and we are so sorry for that. And we'll make sure to do better going forward.
Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
Okay, my perk of the week. So the reason we didn't record for like 2 weeks is because I went on vacation with Kevin's family. I talked about it some before. We just went to a lake house. We didn't go crazy, guys. Don't worry. I wasn't at all the bars. But it was just so nice to have off of work for a week because I was getting really burnt out at my job. And especially just working at home, I was just done. So it was really nice for that. And it was nice to see his family and just be around other people. And even if we were just sitting watching a hockey game like Kevin and I usually do, it's I have other people to talk to. And it was just so fun. And it was so nice to see them. And it just made me think maybe there'll be a life after COVID.
Just gives you that little bit of glimpse into, like, the future of, like, oh, yeah, like, we did this before, and one day again, this will be a thing.
Yeah, and the lake was so nice. We were on Lake Norman in North Carolina, which is a man-made lake. But I was really nervous, especially after Naya Rivera with the lake. I was like, do I want to get in this? But, like, where we were, because our house had, like, a dock, it was a no-wake zone, but literally, like, you could just get a pool noodle, and you just sat there, and you just didn't really move. So that was nice. Like, you could just, like, chill. So, yeah, it was super fun.
Sounds really
I wish I was back there. All week, Kevin and I are just like, can we go back?
Right? You're like, I'm done with this. I'm just going to go back to vacation.
I kind of just want to, like, take my work stuff with me and just be like, 5 o'clock, get off, go jump in the lake.
Right? I mean, benefits of working remotely, you can really do it anywhere, so.
You really could. But, yeah. So, Jaclyn, what's your perk of the week?
My perk of the week is about as equally exciting, and it's smoothies. So.
I should have seen this one coming.
I know, right? I don't know. I just been on a smoothie kick this week. One afternoon, I was like, a peanut butter banana smoothie sounds good. And I had bananas and peanut butter and almond milk, so I was like, let's just throw all this together. And it was really good. And then I've made a couple more, and I've really perfected it. And then yesterday, Andrew got me some peanut butter powder and some chia seeds, which is what I've been drinking during this recording. So yeah, I'm just really digging my smoothies this week. He also got me some frozen spinach and some more frozen fruit, but he left all of our frozen groceries at work, so I'm not going to have that till Tuesday.
Oh, no. So, did he leave it? Do they have, like, a big
He left it in the freezer. Yeah. He didn't just leave them out. No, I'm just going to eat that spinach after it's been out for 4 days. It's fine. Yeah, he went grocery shopping on his lunch break and then put all of his stuff, like, in their freezer refrigerator, and he brought the refrigerator stuff, but left all the freezer stuff. So, but it's in the freezer, so I'll have it next week, and then I'll throw some spinach into my smoothies as well. So that's my perk of the week.
I had spinach last night. That's really random, but
I like spinach.
It was good.
Yeah.
Basically, this is what Kevin does is I'll be like, oh, hey, I forgot, blah, blah, blah. Like, can you go to the store and get it? And I guess he just gets nervous that he's not buying enough, and he'll buy, like, literally I was like, we need, like, 2 handfuls of spinach for these turkey meatballs I'm making. And he literally got a bag and, like, a container of spinach. I was like, how much spinach did you think I was going to put? And, like, I'll ask him to buy seasonings, and he buys, like, the big. So, yeah, we had leftover chicken, and I was like, I guess I'm going to saute some spinach.
Put some spinach in with it. That makes me
There
think
we go.
of Andrew and my yogurt. So I eat Greek yogurt every single morning for breakfast. So I always, like, Greek yogurt's always going to be on my grocery list. So then Andrew started getting just, like, a whole bunch of Greek yogurt, because I guess he's like, you ask for this every single week, like, let me just get a ton. And then, like, I guess 2 weeks in a row, he forgot that the last week he got, like, so he brings home, like, 4 packages, and I already have, like, 3 unopened. I'm like, we'll just have a whole shelf of yogurt in the fridge. It's fine.
Yeah.
So,
at least those things stay good for, like, a pretty long time. Because I bought some yogurt before I left, and I was like, oh, no, it's going to be bad. And I was like, oh, wait, I still have, like, 2 weeks. Cool.
Yeah, like, Greek yogurts are usually good for, like, 4 to 6 weeks from, like, the time you buy them. And, like, I literally eat it every single day, sometimes twice a day if I have one for a snack in the afternoon. So it's, like, it's going to get eaten before it goes bad. It was just, like, trying to cram it all into my refrigerator. But, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm always assuming, like, milk. It's like, you get it, and then it's like, oh, it's bad already.
Yeah, that's pretty much the main reason why we get, like, almond or soy milk, just because it lasts so much longer. So I'm like, and we don't really use it. I mean, I'm using it more now that I'm drinking my smoothies every day. But for the most part, it's one of those, like, oh, sometimes we'll want, like, a cereal snack or something, but it's not like a routine item that we, like, use. So if I just have, like, a thing of almond milk.
I don't really use milk. I usually get soy milk for myself, and Kevin likes whole milk. So that's usually what I get. Yeah, I know. But we don't really get it that much because we don't really use it. So it's like, whatever.
Yeah. All right. Just a reminder, we are still running our contest. We're getting close on the Instagram followers. I think we're at, like, 87, 88.
88. This morning.
Okay.
I checked. I did, yeah.
All right. So, guys, 12 more of you guys, and then we're going to draw somebody to win a sticker and a pin and a gift card to a coffee shop of your choice. And we're going to do that also when we reach 50 reviews on Apple Podcast, which we are not close to, so keep those coming. Yes. You can find us on Instagram to follow us if you have not. And also make sure you share our information, because if you share it, we'll add you in a second time for the drawing. So just, putting that out there. We are at Caffeinated Crimes Pod. You can email us at caffeinatedcrimespod@gmail. Send me your smoothie recipes, please.
What's your favorite smoothie? Tell us.
I know, right? If you're so inclined, you can donate to us on Patreon at patreon.com/caffeinatedcrimes, where we have some bonus episodes and some other goodies for you guys. And I think that's all the business.
So go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.